Hi there, welcome to Talk Canicross. I'm Janetta George.
And I'm Gail Walker. We're here today to talk all things Canicross, the fun way to get fit with your dog. So we hope you'll join us, whether it's for training tips, dog talk, or just for fun and encouragement. This is Talk Canicross, brought to you by DogFit. And don't forget to hit subscribe and keep in touch with all things Canicross. We're often asked on social media if any dog can Canicross, especially those with anxiety or behavioural issues. Happily, the short answer is yes. But it isn't simply a case of just going out and buying the kit and heading off onto the trails. It's really important that you know your Canicross code, and that includes having the correct equipment and also using the correct commands. So that means when you're running, you're in a lot more control. For some people, though, it can even help having the guidance of a dog trainer, and they can really help you and your dog. So today we have Clare Grierson with us, who's our DogFit trainer based in Enfield and is a very highly regarded dog trainer. Claire's a big advocate of Canicross and how it can help complement her training. And she's going to share some of her knowledge with all of us today and hopefully share a couple of examples of how she's helped some of her clients and their dogs. So welcome, Claire. It's lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much. No pressure. No pressure.
Oh, well, you've done this before.
I've done this before. I think I had makeup on last time.
And you're hugely knowledgeable. So you've got, lots of information to help advise people. But if we start back from the beginning, and maybe you could just give us a brief outlook of how you started in dog training and what inspired you to go down that route for your career.
Well, I have to blame my mum, really. She gets the blame for most things. But like a lot of people in this industry, I was brought up surrounded by different animals. In fact, a whole spectrum of animals, but particularly dogs and cats. I think we had 8 cats at one point. But I've also always been interested in behaviour and what makes people tick. But that was much more from a marketing and advertising perspective, which is obviously not as much fun. But mum was a biology teacher. She was interested in dog training. She dragged me along to a few things. We had spaniels and collies and dogs that need a lot of input or benefit a lot from a lot of brain work. So I got literally bitten by the bug, and rest is history, really. Although we've both got very different approaches in how we work with the dogs. I've gone on a slightly different route, but blame my mum, basically.
On that subject, then, you said you've gone down a different route. What's your training philosophy, and how do you approach working with different types of dogs that come to you?
My philosophy is very much prevention rather than cure, and I don't tend to train for training's sake in all contexts. I think it's much more getting to know dogs as individuals. They've got individual genetics, individual learning histories. They live in very different environments. And then you've got the humans who have also got varying genetics, varying learning histories, and create different environments. So we have to look at every case that we work with on its individual merit. You can't work with the dog without taking into consideration the human element. So there's a lot of variables. So it's always good to look and understand the dogs, their potential breed traits, their backgrounds, looking at how the environment affects their behaviour at any given time. And all of those variables are changing all the time. So it's great to be able to teach them tricks and use their brain and give them an enrichment. But you've got to do that on a background of an understanding of behaviour and how that works. From my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's as you just mentioned there at the beginning, it's not about just training the dogs, it's training the owners as well.
Yeah, a lot of the time. And to be fair, that is the fun part. It can be great fun to learn about lots of different people and how they tick as well. So it's very important.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's fun rather than challenging.
Yeah.
So Claire, what specifically drew you to Canicross then, and how did that kind of complement in your existing business? I mean, you've been a trainer with us for many years, and I know a lot of people come to you and you're highly regarded, but what made you start down the Canicross route as well?
Well, I have to say I'll always be for finding Canicross, forever grateful. I didn't actually think I'd ever run again as an adult. I started Canicross, I don't know, when I was 44. I'd lost it might have been a bit later than that, but I'd lost my grandma and my dad. but I never thought I'd run. But I was a cross country runner as a youngster. I used to run for Enfield Harriers and then Middlesex. So I love running, but running in a group with other people is so much more fun. And running with dogs is basically the icing on the cake, basically. And I think once you experience the thrill of running with your dog in a partnership, there is no going back. I think running without them is just a no-go for me now. And they seem to love being able to take their brakes off. Them going at their speed and at their pace really pushes you on. I think Canicross also helps you run with a better posture because the equipment, if used properly, is pulling your hips forward, which straightens your spine, which opens your lungs, it straightens you out. So I think I'm a better runner for having run with my dog. In terms of my business, it's just added the most amazing social aspect. We've got an amazing bunch of lovely, like-minded, dog-loving people of all ages, all backgrounds. We've even got a clown.
Oh wow!
Yeah, you know. So, and then we've got dogs of all different breeds and different backgrounds. So,
amazing.
So yeah, it gives a lot of the more difficult dogs an outlet as well. It gives the people who might have felt isolated because they've got reactive dogs and they're worried about letting them off the lead, and it gives them an ability to feel that they're providing for their dog, providing an outlet for their dog, but it also helps them to feel more positive about their relationship. And all throughout the process, we work with those dogs to make sure they've got enough space and that they feel better about things, and we're building their resilience and confidence within that context of the sport. So long answer, but
It's funny you touched upon the social, because I've seen you're very good at sharing your adventures on social media, especially Instagram. I'm sure we'll go on to that later, but with some of your sort of tips for people, but also just the social aspect, how important that is. And to think that a lot of those clients that come to you might have come to you, some of them, not all of them obviously, have come to you as a dog trainer. They've come to you for help with your dog. And then to see them obviously running in a group together with other dogs. And to see happy, relaxed owners. And then obviously it follows through that their dog will feel that way and vice versa. So I think it's lovely to actually see that evidence as well, because I know you speak so passionately about it, but we see it a lot on your social feeds, and it's really nice, and everyone's obviously smiling and
I make them. They're relieved it's over.
You've got that cattle prod there going, So obviously you've got some very happy customers and dogs, and it's all good. But when they first come to you for their very first session, so they probably got in touch with you for a taster, and they don't know where to start. They might even have a dog that has some behavioural issues. They might not have ever done much running themselves. So what's your how do you approach that very first session? Because obviously you've got to think about the owner. You've also got to think about the dog. So do you have a structured way of running that first class?
Yeah, I do. I think everything in life is all about confidence. When we feel confident or we feel believed in, we can achieve all sorts of things. I think when people first come to me regarding Canicross, it's all about that information gathering in the first instance. Get to know a little bit about the owner. Where are they in terms of their running journey? Have they ever run before? Are they scared of running? Are they marathon runners? We have all sorts in our group. Have they got any health issues? Where's their confidence level, and what are their pain points? What are their barriers to feeling that they can do this and run with their dog? Then you look at the dog. What is the breed of the dog? What's the dog's personality? Are they confident? Are they goofballs? Where do they fit in? How do they respond to the owner outside of Canicross? What's their relationship like? What is normal behaviour? How old are they? Have they had a vet check? Are they dragging one leg? Are they deemed healthy and pain-free? Do they like other dogs? How do they behave around other dogs? Are they fearful, overexcited, aggressive? So all of these things we want to look at, from both points of view, individually, but also as a team, the human and the dog together. So I offer them a free meetup. We look at what they're like together, as I said, and individually. And then together we'll go through the equipment. We'll make sure that we have good fitting equipment for both human and the dog. We want everyone to feel comfortable and in balance. and then we'll have a little go at their own pace. And then if they're happy, then we invite them to join the game. Be honest, if I've found out enough about them prior, I'll just say, come along, have a free trial. And I'm telling you, 99% of people, when I do that, actually just sign up on the day. And I put that down to the group of people that we've created. I mean, it's such a good vibe. Everybody's so welcoming. But yeah, so I'll tell everybody that we've got a new team coming in. Tell them to be nice and kind and gentle. Give them any tips on how that new team may need to be accommodated. You know, they might need a bit of space, they might need a bit of guidance and encouragement, and yeah, we go from there, and it's great. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you know, it sounds like a lot of questions and things to go through, but that's more about making sure that you're setting the right circumstances for those trial sessions and those classes. I mean, throughout all our trainers and at DogFit, obviously it's a very inclusive sport, and we really encourage people that have dogs that are reactive, are anxious, because it can be just life-changing for the dog and the owner. But have you found when you've been running these classes that there are certain breeds that maybe behave in a different way and maybe a little bit easier or more challenging? And obviously we have our lovely rescue dogs where some people can't let their dogs off the lead. So Canicross has been a breath of fresh air. But what's your experience of that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our dogs, maybe not quite 50%, are rescues. I don't think that there are any specific breeds that are more challenging than others in that Canicross context. That's not to say that some breeds, bulldogs and pugs aren't exactly designed for Canicross. let's be fair. But I don't think breed has a direct or a reliable kind of I can't think of the word, but it doesn't equate to how much stamina that dog's going to have. So many of the breeds that we have, some of the smallest ones are the best, so we've got everything from Dachshunds. My Cavapoo is mad for it. She's got a couple of boys she particularly likes. She's a bit of a floozy. If they have to be in front of her, and she's off with her ears going, she's terrible. She's an embarrassment. But then, we've got Staffies, we've got Whippets, we've got Dalmatians, it's just amazing. So I think rather than breed and sometimes even background, it's more important to look at their nature and their personality and their health, making sure there's no sort of pain issues that are being exacerbated. Obviously, dogs are very stoic. Adrenaline masks pain, so when they're running, they won't necessarily feel or certainly not show the discomfort, and that's quite a dangerous road to go down. But yeah, I do always try and look beyond breed. And rescues, I love rescues, and I love having them in our group. And I think if we can enrich their lives, give them an outlet, give those human beings who have worked so hard with them and given them that chance, if we can give them a nice, safe, comfortable environment to bond and have an outlet and have a bit of socialization, then bring it on. I think it's brilliant for that. So
fantastic. That's lovely to hear. Something that sort of crossed my mind a few times with your job as a dog trainer and being a DogFit trainer as well is obviously when you do your dog training, when you're using commands, you're normally getting the dog's attention, aren't you? You might have to get them to look at you, and Canicross is quite a challenging one because the dog's obviously encouraged to pull out in front and they're looking in the same direction as the owner. We obviously have Canicross commands that we use, as you know, and they work, the fundamentals work really well, but I'm just sort of curious from your perspective, what's your personal take on trying to teach a dog to, certain Canicross commands when they're obviously leading out in front and can't get their focus on you? Do you find it more challenging or do you adapt in a certain way? It's, how do you explain that, especially to your clients?
Your key, and I go on about this a lot in everything that I do, scent work, obedience, everything. is a marker word, and people underestimate this marker word. Everyone looks at me like, what? There are two words that your dog needs to understand or have a really good positive vibe about. One is their name, but one is a marker word, because if you've got a strong marker word or a clicker, you use it, bang, that means what you've done is the right thing. You're going to be reinforced for that. So if you're working with a dog and they're working out front, first of all, I would use a target or something that they're working towards, so they're encouraged to be out in front of you. Nice. Then you use that marker word to say yes, and then you allow them to pull ahead and go to that plate of food, whatever it is that you're using as a target. So you build in associations. Dog training is all about making associations. This cue means you get that marker word, which means you get that reinforcer, whether it starts off as food on a target in front of you, or it is you're allowed to sniff, or it is go and chase that bird then across the field. Once you've built up those associations and you then put a cue on it, the dog goes, oh, I know what that means. And they'll hear you say it, and then they'll do it. And then you've got your secondary reinforcers, which are environmental reinforcers, or in Canicross, it's go on, hack it down that path. Go as fast as you like. It varies. But yeah, it's all about building up associations, and you do it on a very basic level, and then you extend that out into putting duration on it or distance on it. I hope that's explained that. It's quite difficult to explain, actually.
It is. But I mean, I guess one of the things that would be good to expand on a little more, and I know that some of our, we get feedback that this sometimes can be challenging for people, is how you might advise people. And when all the dogs are running together, they all pull very strongly. And we know that there are certain breeds and natural pullers.
Yeah.
Whether you're running on your own or you're running with a group, they only know one kind of default action when they're doing Canicross. But we do, and I've even got one dog like this where she's not a natural puller, but if we're in the group, she will pull. And then if I go out and run with her on her own, she would be happier running by my side. So what advice would you give to people on those sessions that you might be doing on your own, just to help reinforce that what you're asking the dog to do, and it's basically to pull forward in front of you?
Yeah. So I would, when you're in an environment where you're getting what you want from the dog, I would make sure, and people don't do this enough, I think, make sure you're verbally, because you've got nothing else sometimes, verbally egging that dog on.
Yeah.
I mean, people laugh at me because they can hear me the other side of Trent Park going, go, 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 go. But you have to make the effort to sometimes ramp these dogs up, and this dog's great. You're allowed to do that, So I will go, 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 go. And what I'll do is I'll use situations where I know Boo is in love with Buddy. I know that. So poor old Victoria has to be in front of me a lot of the time. But I use that as a time to really ramp her up and say, go on then, go for it. And I will introduce a cue on the behaviour that I'm naturally getting because that dog's there.
Yeah.
So that when I'm out on my own, I can say that cue, and for all she knows, Buddy's up the path. But she will associate that. I know what that cue means. That means gun it, So I'll do that. There are things like, if you've got a dog that, for example, really likes to sniff, which is a real pain if you're trying to run, you would start off by encouraging them to run through, you might chuck something out for them to chase, encouraging them to run a little way, and then tell them, go on, then go sniff, have a sniff. And you wait for them to have their little sniff, then they look at you, then you encourage them to run again. You might again chuck something out front, and then ask them to, and you gradually build up the amount of time you're running and reduce the amount of time they're sniffing. But it's all about finding what motivates that dog and bottling it and putting it on a cue and using it when you need it.
And being completely consistent, isn't it? You're not one day saying on and the next day saying run on. You've got to use those consistent commands. 100%.
Everything is about consistency and being as clear as you can be. I think we chat on too much sometimes. We're like, no, go this way, no, do this, no, don't do that, do the, if we can say yes and then reward the dog, yes, then reward the dog's like, oh, okay, that's really clear now. So yeah, it's about getting a bit of clarity into it as well. Yeah.
I mean, Janetta mentioned about common challenges, especially when you're running out on your own and you've got a dog that runs next to you. We do hear from a lot of customers that, especially if they're completely new to running themselves, or they've got a particularly strong dog, that they're actually worried the opposite effect as well, that the dog is going to pull them too hard and they're going to struggle, and then bring in an off-road element and downhill. It's all a Benny Hill moment. But you know, again, how do you address those sort of challenges, especially when someone comes to you for the first time, they turn up, you know, with their big, super athletic dog, and they're like,
normally I swap with them. No, I spend a lot of time saying to people, just go with it, because I think the minute that you relax, you understand actually you've got more control than you realize you've got, and it's all about using your core and your hips, and you know, teach a whoa cue, a slowing down cue, and do that outside of the context where you've got all the adrenaline and all the other dogs, so that again the dog understands what that feels like and what that means, and then make sure that they're motivated to do it. So you might start off by saying whoa, and then you give the dog food. That's not ideal in a Canicross context, but it gives them that idea. Or you might say, ask them to slow down, and then the biggest reward is go on, then go, off you go. You know, you then allow them to run ahead again. It depends on the dog, it depends on you, but you know, by putting some of these things on cue, so for example, a with me, directional cues left and right, easy to train, and on by cue, things like that, by training them individually outside of that huge exciting environment, can then help you feel more in control when you are in that environment, and actually then, you know, you can bring those cues on quite quickly within a Canicross context. For, you know, for example, your left and your right, once the dog kind of got an understanding of that, if you're then running the same course as you've run before, you know it's left and a right. The dog starts to know that's a left and a right. We always go right at this point. You introduce the cue as you're doing it, you're again building those associations. You have to work on it a little bit, but I think be confident, go with it, and I'm always there to sort of help people, and I will run alongside them and make sure that they're not gonna be injured.
That's the important thing, having the reassurance and the support of their trainer. They're not on their own, and I think that also helps having you there as well.
Well, and I'm sure we've got some people maybe listening to this that maybe have dogs that are anxious or reactive, and they're thinking, that all sounds great and I'd love to do that with my dog, but I feel really embarrassed because I know he's going to kick off and he doesn't like other dogs, but he's maybe a bit under exercised because and I can only walk him at 5 a.m. How do you kind of accommodate dogs and approach that? Because, you know, it can be just life-changing for them if you can get them into a... Yeah,
totally. And this is, you know, we do have dogs like that. But I think what's great about our group and the ethos that we've built up is those dogs are accepted, and those dogs come first almost. You know, they are given the space. The great thing about Canicross is that dogs are on the lead, and they're given space as a natural thing. So we've all got space. When you're running in an environment that has got trees and bushes and cars occasionally, you know, parked cars, you can use those natural barriers as a way of giving that dog space. And more timid dogs, you are using those natural barriers to give them a safe place. But the fab thing is once they get into that rhythm and the humans and the dogs get to know each other, you kind of, familiarity breeds kind of confidence and security. So people get to know what those particular dogs need, and we accommodate them, and then they start to settle down and they turn up and go, yeah, I normally bark at you, I'm gonna have a little bark, but now I'm all right, let's get running. And it's the recovery time speeds up. And there is no embarrassment. Dogs do what dogs do, and they do it for the reasons they do it. And, you know, we have to understand that it's not anybody's fault. It doesn't make you a bad person that your dog has, you know, it has a fear issue or likes to shout. You know, it's not it's not your fault. It's the way it is sometimes. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully Canicross gives the owners that confidence to be able
Exactly.
they're in a safe environment. And they can see for themselves that I think other people that have dogs that may have behavioural issues or they react to whatever it is often think that everyone else's dog is well behaved. And
Totally.
It's not like that, is it?
No, it's not like that. And do you know what? I've yet to find a dog that is perfect. You know, they've all got their little quirks. They've all got their little issues. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think certainly within that group, everybody, and within, you know, most people will understand that dogs are dogs, and it's one dog that can be confident in X environment will not cope in another environment. You know, so it's not necessarily always that's the dog and that's how the dog is. You change the environment, you change the behavior. So any dog is capable of behaving in a way that will embarrass you, and any dog, if you change the environment, is perfectly capable to learn to feel more confident and more relaxed, and you won't see those behaviors coming through. So it's all very fluid. It's not, you can't label a dog any more than you can really label a human being. We all change all the time.
That's a very good point. You're always training, always training. On that subject, Shay, obviously Canicross is great, and you get that bond with the dog. You bring in, you incorporate all the commands, and you've done your left and right, and you're with me and everything. And how important is what your clients learn from Canicross in terms of managing their dog's behaviour? How well does that translate to what they're doing outside of Canicross? You know, sort of every day, walking the dog, you know, on the roads or off road. Yeah,
I hope they never get away without a lecture from me on one thing or another as we go around. So I hope it does help them. I think, you know, the whole fact that we're using harnesses, I think that's very important for dogs generally out and about, you know, not just for Canicross. Nice Wi-Fi fronted harness that doesn't impact on gait and gives them freedom of movement. I think also how we give our dogs space is very, very important. I see a lot of people who if they feel that their dog's going to be overexcited and jump up at somebody or is going to react to another dog, I see people gather the dog in, shorten the lead and pull them into them. Don't. You know, it's not making that trigger. It's not making it any further away. It's not giving you distance away from that trigger. That trigger's still there. But what you've done now is you've reduced your dog's options. You've increased their anxiety. You've put them under tension. They're not going to feel any happier about the situation, and this is where people get bitten. So this with Canicross and with people that are walking their dogs and are scared, what you want to be able to do is create space by moving them away, and you move them away by creating space for them to move into with you in a positive way. So that's something that I do a lot of work with, both within Canicross and outside of that. So yeah, I like to think that they go away with a better understanding of how to maneuver their dog, give their dog choices, using cues rather than physicality, and using the lead to control. You know, so yeah, I hope they do learn a lot from me.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. It's quite interesting you said about putting the lead in, because I think with Canicross, luckily everyone knows the distance apart from each other, so when you're in a group you can respect that. And I guess it's just in some instances you could be down narrower paths, and I guess sometimes you have to sort of I will always try and find a gap in a hedge. but I think things like using you know, a with me cue or a touch cue, or I love the drop cue. So the drop cue, we all practice for getting things out of our dog's mouths. You say drop, you drop food. Yeah. But that's only going to work if you've practiced that when there's nothing in your dog's mouth. So use it more. Use it to get your dog's nose down. Use it for recall, close proximity recall. Use it to move your dog away from a distraction. If that dog knows that drop means there's a whole heap of food going down on the floor that I can scavenge and pick up, then you know, how simple is that? You know, okay, we don't want to use a lot of food when we're running,
But in an emergency, why not? You know, so it's all about finding other ways, I think, and other cues.
Interesting.
Yeah, make our dogs. We want our dogs to choose to do what we would prefer them to do, and that being the case, we have to find the motivation for that.
That's such an excellent way of putting it.
Mm.
Have you got any success story you can share with us, that of somebody maybe that's come to you for training and then they've gone on to Canicross, or how you know they may have turned that situation around and giving the behaviour that we'd prefer them to do?
Yeah, I've got quite an interesting case came to me. It was a rescue sight hound, beautiful dog called Shams, which means I think sun in Arabic or something. And the lady came to me because this dog was very reactive to other dogs, but it wasn't a case of you get too close and the dog reacts. This dog would spot another dog on the horizon about 50 miles away and completely kick off. Okay. So what do you do with that? Because normally what you would do is you would work at the distance that the dog can cope, and you would reward calm behavior and look to decrease the distance away until you can get up close. Well, we can't do that. We're never getting any calm, because as soon as this dog knows that dog's there, can smell it, she's off. So controversially, I went, do you know what we're going to do? We're going to start off with this dog right next to another dog. Obviously, we used my dog. No unknown dogs were damaged during this process. So we introduced her right up close to another dog. And she went, oh, okay, this is cool. And we rewarded her for calm behaviour, standing next to this dog. And then we worked backwards. So we would, she could, be calm from 1 metre away from this dog, calm 2 metres away, until she was like, another dog, no big deal. I can get to see other dogs. Now, if you think about how Canicross works, it was perfect, because she could be given an outlet for chasing other dogs, being around other dogs, being excited around other dogs, ragging it, all those nice sight hound behaviours around other dogs. And then she would be, we could get within sort of 2 metres and reinforce her for being calm. So for a dog like that, it was the perfect sport to get her introduced into, and just let her kind of, find her feet and think, well, actually, I am allowed to see other dogs. Because the more you stop a dog doing something that they innately need to do, the more frustration you get, and frustration leads to rage. So that is one of my, I think, more interesting.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean,
turn it on the head.
Yeah. I mean, they all bark, don't they? They all. That's the thing. It's not some lovely utopia of all the dogs coming together and you're all quietly just going off and trotting.
Not a library. but also, I think sometimes we misinterpret behaviour. Sometimes we think our dog is going to be aggressive and is behaving badly, but actually that dog's going, I just want to play, just let me say hello. And then because they're big or they're fast, or you don't think your recall's good enough, you don't allow them to do that, and then the behavior just escalates as frustration builds. It's a bit like teaching a dolphin to jump. You're working with frustration to get that dolphin to jump higher and higher and higher. So it's the same science, but for a different.
Very interesting, actually, that story, because I've got a dog who's like that, gets very frustrated, wants to be with other dogs. But until I'm working on his recall, because to me it's got to be spot on, because I don't want to be. I'm talking about going. This is where Canicross is great for him. Yeah. He's a young dog. He's athletic, and he loves Canicross. I can go for a run on my own with him and he'll pull. So I'm very lucky in that regard. But we still keep him on the lead when we're walking, because I know he'll see a dog in the distance and he wants to get to them. But if until his recall's perfect, I don't want to be one of those owners that can't recall their dog. And if he runs over to somebody who's got a dog on a lead, that's the last thing I want. But it takes time. It's very hard. Yeah. That's where Canicross is great, though. Because he's getting to burn off his
to do that stuff.
It. Yeah.
I think what the way I might approach that, not knowing all the details, obviously, but if you know somebody who is happy to stand for half an hour with their dog in a park, what I would do is allow him a calm greeting, So if he can be calm within, I don't know, sort of 3 foot away from that dog, you allow him to sniff that dog and say hello. Then you recall him away. His biggest reward for recalling, and we're talking short distance, we're not talking a big distance. You have him on a 5 meter long line, you might be working at half of that. Call him back to you, reward him with a game or whatever he likes to do. Better to use food, because we want him to be calm rather than ramped up when he's saying hello to the other dog. But if he can be calm, then you say his biggest reward will be, go on then, say hello to that dog. And then if he can be calm and say hello to that dog, you recall him back a bit further. His reinforcer is always to be able to go and say hello to that other dog. And then if it's appropriate, on your last one, allow them to have a play.
Yeah.
Because then he's learning, I get what I want to do by going back to mum and saying hello, being calm, getting a bit of food. That's really nice. And then I get my ice cream as well. So that's what I
That's
like.
a really good idea. Thank you. And I'm sure.
Well, I can volunteer.
Yeah, brilliant. There we go.
I volunteer my 2 older dogs, Gail. We can
Make sure you charge us.
We'll test it out and report back.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
No.
I'll tell you what, I bet it's very common, and
Very common.
the examples you've given, I think anyone listening to this will get a lot of value out of it. And I think, I can testify that the Canicross is a great outlet, and it's a great reward in itself to give that chance to sort of, have a good run and see them so happy as well. So thanks for doing that. We're almost out of time, but I did want to ask you one question. Final question we often ask our guests, but there'll be people listening to this who, great, they're already doing Canicross. They've probably got some really great advice from listening to you today. Say someone is contemplating trying Canicross for the first time, so they've never done it before. So what would be your advice? I mean, it's assuming that it doesn't, whether their dog has behavioural issues or not, irrespective of that. But what's your thoughts about Canicross in general, and why someone should at least try?
They should do it. Well, I just put those trainers on and go and do it. I mean, it's like anything. If you are thinking of doing it, then bite the bullet and just do it. Or as that book says, eat that frog. I would make sure I would get a good pair of shoes. I would get a good harness for your dog. Get the kit, or find a really nice DogFit instructor near you. Go and talk to them. Go and meet them. Try the kit on and have a go. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. It's any of the worries that you have, you can work on. There's always ways around those things, but I think until you've tried it, you're not going to know. But
it's true. Try it, you might like it.
Absolutely. We've got ladies that and men that run with us that have were worried about it because they were unfit or they were slightly overweight. They're gunning it. They are they've done so well, and they started off doing a shorter route to start with. I mean, the changes that I've seen in the people that have joined us, and the changes that I've seen in the dogs that I have joined us, I can honestly say, hand on heart, that no one would regret giving it a go.
Yeah, and your dog will always thank you. That's what. You go, oh my gosh, that's just like heaven for both of us. So
and when you get home and the aforementioned dog is lying on the sofa going, no, I can't, because they're worn out, because they've had that social, they've had that exercise, they've been able to sniff at the end of it, and they're done. Then you're going to be thanking yourself as well.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's brilliant, Claire. It's just been such an insightful kind of episode today. So we will also put in our show notes all your links to your channels as well.
Thank you.
And for anyone listening to this, if you can give us a follow, subscribe to the podcast, and give us a comment, that would be absolutely great. But yeah, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Claire. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talk Canicross. We really hope that you've enjoyed it. But don't forget to hit subscribe so we can keep you up to date and let you know when the next episode comes out. Happy Canicrossing.